She walked through those airport doors like every ounce of her had been scraped out mid-flight. No TLC camera crew. No dramatic music, just a woman with mascara streaked across her cheeks, clinging to a trembling dog crate like it was the only piece of her old life she still had. No designer luggage, no glam. Her voice cracked as she whispered the only words that would escape her lips. "He promised to protect me." That was it. One sentence. Shaky video. 6 seconds. It wasn't shot by a production team. It came from her sister's phone. Uploaded quietly, probably too emotional to caption anything more than, "She's back." Within minutes, the fandom erupted. Not with jokes, but with something closer to a collective chest punch. You've watched Jasmine rage into her front camera 100 times, crying, deleting, reposting. But this wasn't that. There was no spectacle in this clip, no filters, no edits. The woman who had made a career out of being performatively loud had just been forcibly silenced by the one machine louder than her, the US immigration system, and you could see it on her face. Something had broken, and it wasn't a storyline. Welcome to TLC Drama Files. I'm Aliva, and if you've ever wondered how reality TV goes beyond ratings and into real heartbreak, buckle in. Subscribe if you want the truth producers won't say on camera. And tell me in the comments, do you think she ever imagined it would end like this? Because this part, it didn't air. Jasmine's quiet, tear-soaked arrival in Panama wasn't included in the finale. It wasn't teased in the trailer. And it damn sure wasn't in one of those chaotic tell-all shout fests the network loves to push when they need to paper over what's really going on. This was the final scene of a story nobody wrote, but everyone watched play out. Not on TLC, on TikTok, on Reddit, on gossip pages, and now it's time to rewind. Before that airport clip, there was a photo, a deleted photo. It only lived on the internet for about 45 minutes, but that was enough. Matt, arm in a sling, face drawn, captioned with something like, "I'll be okay." No big hashtags. Just a sentence short enough to scream what it didn't say. Jasmine wasn't tagged. Jasmine wasn't in the frame. Jasmine didn't comment. And if you've been following this cast for even 5 minutes, you don't need subtitles to clock the alarm bells. Because when someone goes missing from Jasmine's feed, that's not silence. That's a siren. But nobody realized that one hospital selfie would be the match that burned everything down, including her American dream. Rewind. 1 week before that blurry airport video went viral, Matt popped up unexpectedly on Instagram. It wasn't a live full of banter or a spicy Q&A dragged out for likes. It was just a photo. A sterile beige hospital curtain in the background, a battered expression on his face, and one arm wrapped tightly in a sling. His caption? Barely a whisper. "Rough night, I'll be okay." That's it. No hospital tag, no explanation, no hint of how he got there. But if you've spent even a few hours in the 90-day universe, you know better. That post wasn't innocent. It was a warning. The internet moved fast, and Matt moved faster. The selfie disappeared within 45 minutes, replaced by a blurred repost. Cropped tighter, scrubbed of location data, reformatted with a cheeky filter, as if he tripped on a stair or bumped into a door. But the energy in his face? Unfiltered. He wasn't fine. He wasn't okay. He looked like a man still trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. But the fans weren't just asking what landed him in the ER. They were asking the real question: why was Jasmine missing? No reposts, no "please pray for us." No meltdown story time with dramatic lighting and dramatic music and a tissue in hand. Her entire account went from chaos to crickets. And that told fans more than a confession ever could. Because if Jasmine has one skill, it's content. Heartbreak, she posts. Toothache, she posts. Someone looked at her wrong during dinner? She goes live and drags them for an hour and a half. But now? Radio silence. Meanwhile, Gina was lurking in the shadows of social media, not speaking on the injury, but definitely watching. Liking shady comments, dropping a couple of vague posts with tight captions like, People play games until they get played, and not all lies come with noise. For a man with a history of mess, that energy didn't read like coincidence. And it didn't take long before fans started putting those fragments together. Within hours, Reddit threads exploded. Memes were replaced with blurry screenshots. Reaction GIFs gave way to blurry freeze frames of a cast hangout that never went live. A TikTok clip caught someone panning the camera across a 90-day get-together. Everyone seemed normal until fans spotted him. Matt, in the background, half visible. Arm already in a sling. The person filming turned the camera so fast it was like they realized they messed up. That's when the switch flipped. That was the moment the fandom decided this wasn't gossip anymore. It was a cover-up. TLC finally said something, but what they said only made it worse. A cold, lifeless statement floated to a blog. Matt experienced an offset injury during a personal incident. We're respecting privacy at this time. And if you followed 90-day history, that wording set off alarms. Because offset injury has been their go-to line for everything from fights that turned physical to full-blown legal mess no one wants to explain on record. Offset injury. Personal incident. That's not clarification. It's corporate panic. If this was truly a sprained wrist during a gym session, they'd say that. If it was a car accident, they would use that term. Because when the truth is boring, PR doesn't hide it. But right now, facts felt like fire. So TLC went with fog. Comment sections across Instagram spiraled. People brought up old clips of Jasmine flipping out over Matt not texting back for 5 minutes. Others started pointing fingers at Gino, because history makes easy targets. He's shown controlling behavior on camera before. He's been called out, broken up with, caught in shady DMs. So when fans saw the injury, they didn't wait for evidence. They slapped a villain label on him overnight. And Jasmine? Still nothing. No confirmation she was still in the country. No defense of Matt. No denial. Until one random night, a story time popped up. No music, no outfit reveal. Just shaky camera, tears, and red eyes. She started to speak, something about betrayal, about trust. But the video disappeared in under 2 minutes. And when it was gone, it was like it had never happened. This wasn't reality TV. This was the kind of hush that falls when real consequences show up to the party. And then fans zoomed into one freeze frame and noticed something that changed the whole equation. Jasmine's comeback to Instagram should have been a scene. She's not the type to suffer quietly. But this time, her return looked less like a flex and more like a glitch. The photo was blurry, her eyes swollen, mascara dried into little black commas across her cheeks. The caption? Long, rambling, cut off halfway. It started with, "I gave everything for this love," slipped into a line about broken promises, and ended with something fans couldn't stop screenshotting. And now, because of one mistake, I might lose everything I built. That post was up for 7 minutes. But a lot can happen in 7 minutes when your every unfiltered moment feeds a machine. What followed was chaos. Not performance, not strategy, pure digital panic. Jasmine posted 3 stories in a row. A selfie video, no filter, whispering about how trust has become a joke. A throwback reel to a date night with Matt. Then a black screen with white text that read, "He said he'd protect me." Swipe. Deleted. She started liking shady comments calling Matt a liar, then unlike them. Then re-like them again an hour later. If Instagram had a panic heartbeat, this was it. People who've watched her for years could tell this wasn't manufactured drama for engagement. This was someone unraveling in real time. Meanwhile, Gino was busy spinning his own web. At first, he dipped his toe in with vague denials. Passive-aggressive stories with corny reposts like, "The truth always comes out," next to a winking emoji. But when his name popped up under every viral injury post, something in him snapped. He started jumping into comments. Not the usual lazy clapbacks. This was something else. One post read, "Y'all about to see who really lied. Keep tagging my name like you won't hear from my lawyer." That word, lawyer, hit different. It wasn't fan play anymore. Gino looked like someone prepping for damage control. Then he went live. Big mistake, no script, no PR filter. Someone dropped a comment asking point blank, "Were you involved with what happened to Matt?" His face stiffened. He took a breath, then let it rip. "This is defamation. People are lying on my name, spreading shut they don't understand, and some of you are going to regret it legally." He didn't blink once while saying it. He knew the camera was on. Knew the fandom was recording. That wasn't confidence. That was defense under pressure. Reddit caught fire that night. Theories flew faster than Jasmine's stories could vanish. Some fans became full-blown detectives. One compared hotel curtains between a live Gino did and a tagged post from Matt's mutual. Another tracked flight records from Gino's layover to Matt's filming location. People were matching carpet textures in Instagram backgrounds, drawing timeline charts, matching timestamps, dissecting reflections in mirrors. It started to feel like true crime. But this time, the crime wasn't what everyone first suspected. The heart of the theory shifted, slowly. No longer, who hit Matt, but why does everyone seem terrified to say what happened? And if this was just another breakup squabble, why the cold legal buzz about personal matters? Offset injury? The more TLC ignored it, the louder the whispers got. Suddenly, it wasn't just partners clashing. It was immigration, paperwork, status risk. Because here's what longtime 90-day watchers know. When an injury becomes part of an official process, especially involving a couple with visa ties, it's not drama. It's government-level scrutiny. It's a case file on someone's desk. One stamped name away from a deportation notice. And now, Jasmine's scattered captions started looking like clues. In one post, she wrote, "All I did was sign papers for love." Then deleted it within an hour. Fans froze. Papers, signed. During the timeline of Matt's injury. What kind of papers exactly? And why panic the second that word was typed? Every chaotic post she made started lining up as breadcrumbs. The crying story time where she sniffled through, "I don't know where I'll be next month." The vague mention of betrayal, not from a boyfriend, but something colder, institutional, like she'd slipped through the cracks of a system she didn't understand. And the big reveal? It didn't come from a grand confession. It came from one line she almost buried in a long, messy caption. One line in her deleted caption, "I signed it to feel safer here." That's when fans stopped laughing. Visa law doesn't care about vibes, heartbreak, or Instagram followers. One signature on the wrong form, one inconsistency in a relationship timeline, one injury where your name even remotely floats into a report, that's all it takes. Immigration operates on a simple, brutal logic. If you're here on a temporary visa and anything looks off, you become a file waiting to be reviewed, not a face the system recognizes. And when fans caught Jasmine writing, "I signed it to feel safe here," they realized what that might mean. She wasn't just processing a breakup or betrayal. She was possibly facing deportation. The clip where Jasmine sobbed, "If they take me, I lose everything," was first labeled another over-the-top moment. But now that line hit like a gut punch. Because fans started digging through older episodes and Instagram lives where she hinted about visa anxiety. Her obsession with staying in the US wasn't subtle. Over and over, she clung to phrases like, "This is my new home. I can't go back there. I left my whole life behind." At the time, it felt theatrical. Now, it felt like foreshadowing. Viewers who had brushed her off as messy but harmless started connecting real patterns. On the show, she'd always flipped from rage to romance, meltdown to makeup. But one thing stayed consistent: her fear of losing her US life. Not just the relationship, not even the storyline, the platform, the status, the chance to not be invisible again. And when Matt ended up hurt, fans began to ask the uncomfortable question: did she push him to phrase something a certain way? To keep her name off a report? If that happened, and that's still in the realm of speculation, it wouldn't be the first time this franchise scraped up against the consequences of legal gray zones. There have been other couples where one partner got arrested or filed reports, and suddenly, immigration renewals got held up. Some never aired. Some were barely mentioned at tell-alls. But the fan base remembers. Old tea resurfaces when new drama boils over. And what made this fire spread faster was social media. Reddit, TikTok, Threads. It became a courtroom, flipped backward. Instead of gathering facts before a verdict, people picked sides and retrofitted evidence to match. Jasmine was either the scared woman used and abandoned, or the manipulative girlfriend who bent a man's words to save her own stability. Matt was either a wounded man pressured into silence, or an opportunist hiding behind vague language. Gino, somehow dragged into this triangle, was either an uninvolved bystander or the scapegoat for someone else's mess. But underneath all the division, rival groups agreed on one thing. TLC wasn't saying nearly enough. The same network that gave Jasmine hours of airtime to cry about a minor text now had nothing to say about an actual cast member showing up in a hospital sling, followed by whispers of immigration fallout. By the time Matt appeared with that nervous grin and a generic "accidents happen," the damage was done. Silence now sounded like complicity. The rumor didn't start with a blog or a YouTube bombshell. It started in whispers. A Reddit user casually mentioned they'd heard Jasmine left a voice note, then logged off. 2 hours later, someone else said they had the clip. They uploaded the audio to a barely watched alt account, but it didn't stay hidden long. Within hours, people were screen recording, re-uploading, and slowing it down to catch every word. Once the fandom touched the leak, it wasn't going away. The voice was shaky but unmistakable. It sounded like Jasmine, same cadence, same emotional escalations. It wasn't screaming. It was pleading. Her words didn't lay out a script, but they circled around one demand. Don't change your story. Don't make it worse. You know what this can do to me. You promised you'd protect me. There was no physical threat in the clip. No violence. But what people heard was something colder. Strategic vulnerability. All emotion, zero accountability. She's allegedly not asking for empathy. She's asking for silence. Reassurance that her life in the States won't be destabilized because of what Matt says in a report. People said you could hear her breath hitch when she mentioned her work, her brand deals, her future. Not healing the relationship, not telling the truth. What terrified her, allegedly, was the thought that a shift in Matt's words could send her out of the country in handcuffs. Nobody's verifying where the clip came from. No one has released the full, unedited context. Jasmine hasn't confirmed it's her. Matt hasn't commented on it. But the reactions speak for themselves. This hit people differently. Because if any of that message is real, the story just transformed from messy couple content into something far more disturbing. People who had defended her through breakdown posts and throwback reels started shifting. Emotional doesn't automatically mean trustworthy. Performative doesn't always mean safe. And for the first time, a lot of fans saw Jasmine as more than chaotic. They saw her as someone who might have crossed a line and used love to do it. At the center of the storm sat Matt. Quiet, tight-lipped, sling still visible in old promos, never outright naming anyone. But now, the silence he maintained looked heavier. At the time, people thought he was protecting someone from online hate. Now, it looked more like he might have been protecting himself from legal fallout, or trying to respect someone whose fear of consequences was making her unpredictable. There's a unique kind of pressure that comes when someone tells you, you're the only one who can keep my life from falling apart. Especially when that someone is a partner. Add in hospital lights, lawyer calls, producers chasing statements, and the stress isn't emotional anymore. It's systemic. Because if Matt tells the full version and it implicates Jasmine, directly or even passively, he risks triggering immigration red flags. If he shades the truth, keeps her name out of it, or minimizes the incident, then he carries the weight of half-honesty. And if legal questions ever come back around, so will his words. Some fans painted him as weak for not standing up earlier, for playing along. But people who've been in these situations, people who know what it's like to love someone hell-bent on holding on to control, understood his hesitation. When your partner weaponizes vulnerability and wraps it in, "I thought you loved me," clarity doesn't come easy. And fear of being the one who causes the system to strip someone's entire life away, that fear runs deep. It wasn't long before the spotlight turned back to Gino. Since the earliest theories, his name had been the easiest one to toss into the fire. He was familiar. He had baggage. He had clips that painted him as reactive. But that's exactly why fans stopped to reevaluate. It was too easy, too expected. What if Gino wasn't the criminal here, but another casualty of the storyline? In hindsight, the timeline didn't scream guilty. It screamed proximity. He was in town. There was tension. Social media posts overlapped. But what fans had once treated as breadcrumbs of involvement now looked more like digital coincidence. And after hearing the alleged leak, Gino's lawyer talk didn't feel exaggerated anymore. It felt like survival. Because think about it. If your name is being floated in conspiracy threads about someone else's injury, months after you even filmed together, and the real conversation is happening in DMs and panic messages, you're going to fight back hard. Especially when someone else's legal risks are possibly being offloaded onto your reputation for distraction value. Fans who previously dragged Gino started holding space for a different possibility. Maybe Jasmine let blame drift toward him, knowing the edit would frame him as someone believable to hate. This wasn't a love triangle anymore. This was a power puzzle. Matt had the statement, Jasmine had the fear, Gino had the bad edit. And none of them seemed to be operating from a place of truth once the system got involved. Everything Jasmine allegedly said in that voice note rang with the desperation of someone who feels the floor giving out beneath them. Not because they don't understand the rules, because they do, and they suspect they already broke them. That quiet panic, the repetition of loyalty demands, the hints about paperwork and stability, not wellness or relationship repair. Fans recognize that survival language, but survival mode doesn't justify everything, especially not when you wrap it in guilt and hand it to someone else to carry. By the time the clip cycled through its third re-upload, fan opinion had shifted. She wasn't being deported because of one mistake. The system may have handled it like one, but her choices went deeper. Allegedly pressing someone to deny or alter a serious injury to protect your image and visa brings a different kind of judgment. Because if that audio is real, and she pressured him to edit the truth, then this was never just a breakup. It was legal manipulation disguised as love. It wasn't dropped by a blogger, didn't come from some gossip site trying to break the story. It came from a regular phone. No edits, no transitions, no dramatic soundtrack. 6 seconds posted to her sister's Instagram story at 2 a.m. U.S. time. The camera's a little shaky. You hear airport chatter in the background. Then Jasmine walks into frame. No glam. Hoodie hanging off one shoulder. Hair frizzy, face puffy from crying. Mascara like ink dragged across her cheekbones. And in her hands, that same tiny pet carrier she used to post about in cozy content from her American kitchen. She walks slowly, like the weight on her back didn't come from luggage. When she hugs her sister, her voice is so cracked, you almost miss it. But not everyone did. She whispers one line, barely louder than the background noise. He promised to protect me. The video cut there, before anything else could be said. But fans didn't need more. TikTok picked it up in seconds, Reddit in minutes. And once people saw it, the energy shifted hard. For weeks, viewers argued over Instagram captions and Reddit threads like it was sport. Team Jasmine, Team Gino, Team Matt. But now, all teams went quiet. Because you can meme someone all you want when their drama plays out in front of ring lights, but when they show up in airport security, wrecked, alone, silent, it doesn't feel like content anymore. It feels like consequence. Up until that moment, there were theories. Was she hiding out? Were producers locking everything down for a tell-all twist? Maybe she was staying off-grid for mental health. But that video killed every option but one. She wasn't resting. She wasn't filming. She didn't ghost social media for peace. She was already gone. And if you followed this show long enough, you know this is where the happy chaos stops. Because nobody gets escorted out of the country for normal visa delays. What happened behind the scenes likely went down fast. One misstep tied to the injury. Maybe a follow-up call? A hospital form flagged something? Maybe comments didn't match. If anything legally questionable landed near her visa file, and she didn't yet have permanent status, it wouldn't take much for immigration review to kick in. Quietly. No dramatic knock. No last-minute courtroom scene. Most people don't realize this part. When immigration moves to remove you, nobody tells your fans first. You don't get a countdown. You definitely don't get to film it. You get pulled into rooms with fluorescent lights, a rapid interview, cold silence, and instructions about which belongings you're allowed to take. You grab the basics, not your closet. You call one person if you're lucky. Then you're booked on a flight, one connection, a layover, and home isn't a concept, it's a country you didn't want to see again. Ever. That's how TikTok turns to terminal in under 48 hours. In the weeks before this video surfaced, Matt had gone live a few times. Never long. Bare background. Hoodie up, sling still visible. He always smiled softly, talked around the truth. One viewer asked how his arm was. He said, "Getting better." Then looked off screen for a beat too long. What nobody could ignore was his energy. The cocky sarcasm gone. The eye contact missing. People said he looked like someone following a script handed to him 45 minutes earlier. He answered safe questions, ignored anything even hinting at Jasmine. The words didn't say it, but his eyes screamed one thing: don't make this worse. So when the airport clip surfaced, fans connected the dots backwards. This was what he couldn't say. Maybe what he wasn't legally allowed to say. Maybe what he tried to prevent. Maybe what he sealed by staying silent. Whatever his reasoning, his live Q&As made more sense now. The tension wasn't whether they'd broken up. It was whether the system had already stepped in and ended something he couldn't fix. As for Gino, the airport footage reinforced what he'd been trying to say from the start. He wasn't involved. Theories of him being behind the injury started losing oxygen fast. With Jasmine back in Panama and no charges ever filed against Gino, fans stopped treating him like the physical villain. But they didn't exactly apologize either. His name had been trending for weeks, for something he didn't do, based on vibes, guesses, and storyline history. Even when caught in the blast radius, he kept saying the same thing. "You'll regret calling me a liar." Now fans selfishly regretted how easy it had been to turn him into the scapegoat. The craziest part? Watching that 6-second video forced everyone to re-watch every single meltdown, every deleted Jasmine crying story, every late-night post about paperwork, betrayal, and being afraid. And through that lens, nothing looked chaotic or entertaining anymore. It looked like warnings no one took seriously until Customs did. When they edited Jasmine crying about lipstick into a punchline, they never showed you the airport footage where she cried into her sister's arms. In the beginning, everyone thought they had it figured out. Gino must have lost it, right? Matt was covering for Jasmine, or maybe Jasmine snapped in a jealous rage. Theories stacked one on top of the other, but none of them matched the ending we got. Gino didn't do it. Matt didn't expose her. And Jasmine didn't just overreact to a relationship gone wrong. The twist? The real villain wasn't one person at all. It was a system. Cold, complicated, ruthless with technicalities. Jasmine's biggest threat wasn't Gino's temper or Matt's indecision. It was her own choices layered over a legal process that doesn't bend for heart emojis or Instagram tears. One injury, one signature, one deleted story that caught the wrong person's attention. That's all it took. A whole life unraveled. Not because she was evil. Not because she was innocent. Because she was under pressure and trying to perform survival like a storyline. But she didn't fall into that pressure alone. Production fed it. From the first explosive scene, she became the franchise's emotional goldmine. Cry louder, post messier, love crazier. That's what brought engagement. That's what kept her on screen. You don't get celebrated for being stable on a show like this. You get rewarded for chaos, then abandoned the second that chaos leaves the confessional and lands in immigration paperwork. And fans? We played our part. We watched her spiral in real time like it was entertainment. We turned every breakdown into a meme, every nervous breakdown into a popcorn-fueled Reddit thread. And by the time people realized the crying wasn't for the camera, it was for ice, it was too late. Matt's still here, but not really. What he went through isn't public record, but it's written on his face every time he skips a question. Every nervous glance, every awkward smile on those live streams shows the emotional cost he's still paying. He probably thought one vague statement would be enough, that protecting someone meant handling the pain in private. But the silence only made the noise around him louder. Gino is also still standing, but the dirt on his name won't go away just because a few threads got deleted. For weeks, he was trashed across social media, fingered as the violent one with zero evidence. Now he's cleared, but not clean. In this universe, it only takes one bad edit to convince thousands of strangers you're a threat. And when the truth finally shows up, it's already chewed through your reputation. And Jasmine? She's not filming spin-offs. She's not returning for a tell-all. She's not teasing a new brand partnership. She's gone. Back in the place she once begged not to return to. Her glow-up halted at customs. Her platform turned into a reminder of what she lost. And her silence now? It's not performative. It's enforced. No final word. No final episode. Just the quiet sound of a life undone. TLC, on the other hand, is doing just fine. Rolling out promos with Jasmine in the middle of it like none of this happened. Editing old silly fights over clothes and curling irons while fans already know she was crying in an airport days after that scene. They're still pushing clips of her arguing about toothpaste while ignoring the part where she might have been pressured, silenced, and eventually removed from the country. As though the deportation never belonged to their story. Like it's someone else's ending to worry about. But here's the problem. When the cameras cut and the legal systems don't, someone is always left holding the mess. And it's never the network. It's the people whose lives were handed over in sanitized contracts for exposure, never really understanding how real the fallout could get. So now the fandom has stopped asking who hurt who and started asking something darker. What happens when your storyline ends, but your file doesn't? Who helps you when you're no longer valuable on television, but still deeply vulnerable in real life? Because what nobody's talking about is the contract Jasmine signed with the network, not just immigration. And trust me, when you find out what TLC cast members are forced to agree to, the deportation might not even be the worst thing they risk.